Welcome to Global Business Insights, where we go into more details behind the leading business headlines. US President Biden has signed a $95 billion package of aid for Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan, saying it's going to make the world safer. We discussed the issues at stake last Monday episode. This bill includes TikTok restrictions, but the CEO of TikTok has said we aren't going anywhere as the battle shifts to the courts, where TikTok expects to win. The US Chamber of Commerce and other trade groups have sued the US Federal Trade Commission after the regulator voted to ban non-compete agreements. This will be our main story for analysis in this episode. Boeing today reported its first quarterly revenue drop in 7 quarters, which beat recently revised lower expectations after the January mid-air blowout of a cabin door prompted it to slow production of its strongest selling jets. Boeing Chief Executive Dave Calhoun also said a deal to acquire its key supplier Spirit Aerosystems is more than likely during the second quarter. Boeing shares were flat in early hours of trading. And US Secretary of State Blinken begins a 3-day visit to China. Sanctions on Chinese banks helping Iran could come up, though not much is expected given the state of affairs between China and the US. And we'll also replay our earlier story on Tesla seeing a jump in its stocks, now over 10% up today, as it promises an earlier launch date for cheaper electric vehicle models. We also replay a story we took in the morning of a former state governor who is facing the heat from Nigeria's Anti-Corruption Bureau as the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, steps up its act. US businesses have vowed to go to war with the Federal Trade Commission over the ban on non-compete clauses, which was already unenforceable in California and now will apply all over the country. The narrow vote 3-2 by the Commission was applauded by labor unions. The CEO of the US Chamber of Commerce, Susan P. Clark, said in a statement, quote, "Non-compete agreements are either upheld or dismissed under well-established state laws governing their use. Yet today, 3 unelected commissioners have unilaterally decided they have the authority to declare what's a legitimate business decision and what is not, by moving to ban non-compete agreements in all sectors of the economy." But this shouldn't come as a surprise. In July 2021, the directive to the FTC came through an executive order from President Biden titled Promoting Competition in American Economy to exercise its authority to curb unfair use of non-compete clauses or any other unfair clauses. A non-compete agreement forbids employees from entering into competition with an employer after the employment period is over, also forbidding them from revealing secrets to any other parties during or after employment. These agreements have helped companies for ages to protect their investments, and over 30 million workers, or nearly 18% of the workforce, are required to sign one before accepting a job. The FTC, however, said existing non-competes remain valid for senior executives earning more than $151,164 annually and who are in policy-making positions. Lina M. Khan, that's the FTC chair, also said non-compete clauses suppress new ideas and rob the American economy of dynamism, and the ban frees up over 8,500 new startups that would be created every year. It could get political, as Republicans could see this as yet another aggressive progressives posture. It obviously adds to cost of doing business in the near term and may erode productivity and ultimately competitiveness. The FTC boasts it would increase wages by up to $488 billion over the next decade and average workers' earnings by about $524 per year. To enforce the rule requires the traditional long process of proceedings before an administrative law judge, followed by a hearing before a full commission and then at the courts. The recent FTC ban does add additional complexity to an already complicated talent market and is likely to heat up the jobs market further, could lift the risk of sticky inflation more to the upside. This in turn could also result in offshoring of middle to senior level jobs. Global job mobility is definitely here to stay. It could lead to US businesses reaching out more actively to bring in talent from other countries to meet their shortages. Human capital management in the US just got more complicated. Global majors must now consider the trade off of risking losing all their valuable secrets to gain access to a larger, attractive US market. Staffing also just got more expensive, and more sensitive rules could be either automated or offshored to jurisdictions where non-compete clauses will apply. High turnover can hurt, of course, service quality. And there is a good side in that less barriers to innovation can lead to incubation of exponential growth in terms of new businesses. But in the medium term, it will imply higher costs, which could weigh on the economy. Higher costs could also lead to more job cuts. But in the war for talent with, say, China, it does give the US an edge. But first, let's see what happens at the courts. There are more workers voting than executives, so there is a subtle political advantage here as well. The other question is whether other countries are likely to follow the US example. I'm not so sure. More likely they will watch to see how it plays in the US first. Tesla is not just about vehicles, but about an extended mobility ecosystem, which includes batteries, solar energy infrastructure, full service driving software, FSD, insurance services, lithium refining, energy storage, humanoid robots, AI compute, ride hail, and vehicle production. For Tesla, global EV sales are under pressure, with car makers prioritizing hybrids over electric vehicles. Tesla saw challenges in the first quarter with supply chain bottlenecks from the Red Sea conflict and an arson attack at its gigafactory in Berlin. But it continues to be committed to make its cars more affordable, seeing a future not just in electric, but also in accessible and affordable autonomous vehicles. The bad news was already known, and shares jumped in after hours after Musk told investors that production of new, much cheaper EV models could begin sooner. This was after it reported a 9% drop in first quarter revenue yesterday, also the biggest decline since 2012, and missed analyst estimates as it is forced to weather a season of ongoing price cuts. In Q1, revenue was $21.3 billion, which was below $22.15 billion expected, and a far cry from $25.17 billion in the fourth quarter of last year. But Tesla is accelerating in other spaces, increasing AI training compute by more than 130% in Q1, seeing record energy storage deployment of 4.1 gigawatt hours in Q1, and producing over 1,000 Cybertrucks in a single week in April. Tesla knows costs have to come down in an increasingly competitive market and strained consumer wallets. Its shares have suffered, down 35%. The message of affordable AI electric vehicles sells well amid intensifying competition, with a similar angle to win market share. It all comes down to innovation and surfing through the waves in a tougher external context. Nigeria's chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Ola Olukoyede, says a former governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, transferred $720,000 from the government's coffers to Bureau de Change before leaving office to pay in advance for his children's school fees. The New York Times is also flagging the detention of Binance staff as wrong, given he's said not to be accountable for transactions under question and is being held hostage. Rule of law is important for business, and institutional lenders want to be sure funds borrowed are well spent in an environment where many investors and businesses still fear they may not be safe from a scenario similar to Nissan former chairperson Carlos Ghosn's abrupt arrest and brazen escape from Japan. Nigeria has to show it knows better in protecting the innocent until proven guilty. According to the New York Times, Binance hired Mr. Gambarian to work on compliance issues in 2021 and eventually made him the head of its financial crime compliance team. The other Binance executive involved is said to have escaped custody and efforts are underway to bring him to answer to the law. Both officers, according to New York Times, have no role in decisions related to charges of tax evasion and other illegalities. What am I drawing attention to here? In Yahaya Bello's case of obvious and direct theft and involvement, he was protected by an army of security operatives and could not be picked up by EFCC, while the Binance officers were an easy arrest, now casted by the New York Times as resembling a crude kidnap for which Binance must pay $1 billion ransom. Binance may surely have a case to answer, but how this case is pursued matters. As for the Yahaya Bello case, seen as the tip of official corruption that routinely thrives unquestioned, the law must also be allowed to have its way, not just against Yahaya, but the many others, irrespective of perceived protections by the ruling government. Also arrested is Hadi Sirika, the Minister of Aviation under former President Muhammadu Buhari's administration, over an ongoing 8 billion naira money laundering probe of Nigerian Air that never took off. Sirika is currently meeting with EFCC investigators to answer questions on alleged fraudulent contracts awarded by him to Engirios Nigeria Limited, owned by his younger sibling Abubakar Sirika, and it goes on. The EFCC have their hands full. All these cases, including those like the former central bank governor, point to still existing leakages that require institutional responses to plug opportunities to drain resources. They also are opportunities for the rule of law to apply fairly and appropriately, irrespective of political or economic stature of parties involved. And in closing, we look at European markets, which fell to a slight loss by midday, with some loss of momentum from earlier in the week. As we speak, it's close to 14:00 GMT. I can see that stocks Europe is down 0.4%, stock 600 down 0.43%, FTSE 250 down 0.41%, FTSE 100 down 0.06%, DAX, the German DAX down 0.27%, while we also see the French CAC 40 down 0.17%. If you look at US stocks, somewhat mixed earlier in the day, although for now the main indices are all looking red. Russell 2000 down 0.59%, Nasdaq down 0.12%, Dow 30 down 0.45%, S&P 500 also down 0.32%. And looking at some of the stocks we discussed today, Boeing is down 1.34%, Spotify down 7.83%. Tesla is up, however, 10.54%. Texas Instruments up 6.38%. PepsiCo up 2.36%, while General Motors down 0.85%. Well, that's it from me on Global Business Insights. Thank you very much for watching. This is Bode Oshosami. Please share, kindly follow on Facebook and LinkedIn, subscribe on YouTube and X.